Hello and welcome to the Redemption Science website. My name is Dr. Eric Carrasco. I am a clinical psychologist and a devout Christian. The reason for this website is to allow individuals to share their redemption story of their experience of how they were rescued through some difficult times and how they, through their spiritual journey, were able to find assurances, hope that changed their outlook during that difficult time and that allowed them to find purpose when everything seemed to be lost. So this is my redemption story. It started in 1973. It was September 11. I was born on September 11, 1968. But on September 11, 1973, my family, I was one of 5 children, and mum and dad was one of 8 children, and all of his siblings were already here in Australia. My dad was wanting to be a pastor and study at the Christian college there in Chile. He was adamant about coming to Australia, but a civil war broke out in 1973, and he realized that if he didn't get out, that he would be stuck in the middle of a war. By the grace of God, a week before September 11, so on September 3, we arrived in Australia, and 8 days from September 3, I celebrated my 5th birthday here with my grandmother and all of my family, and all for $13 we were able to buy a trolley load of food and presents to be able to celebrate my birthday here in Australia, in a free country of opportunity and wealth that has afforded me a great education that has been free. So I'm eternally grateful that the Lord was able to deliver us from that civil war and bring us to a land of peace, of milk and honey. Now, one of the interesting history about my family was that for over 5 generations, my great-grandmother passed on to my grandmother, and on from my grandmother to my father to me, and me to my children, has passed on at the end of every prayer, Psalms 34 verse 7, which says, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them." And throughout our generations, the Lord has protected and answered to many and most of all of our prayers. Whilst September 11 from 2001, the last 20 years, has been this date of fear and terror, September 11 for me and my birthday has always been about redemption. I'm hoping that my life experience there will encourage people to realize that what may appear like fear and terror does not have to be when the angel of the Lord is around those that love and fear him. I encourage you all to have a look at that psalm. Maybe at the end of every prayer, recite it, teach it to your children to say it. My dad would add Psalms 4 verse 8, which said, "In peace I lay down to sleep, because I know, O Lord, in you I rest in safety." And right now, we need to make sure that we give everybody the assurances of that peace and safety. Now, the angel of the Lord is no other than Jesus Christ himself. But it is interesting to follow throughout Scripture who this angel of the Lord is, because he appeared to so many people, and yet time and time again that presence of the angel of the Lord, which is Jesus Christ, had responded to a time of confusion, time of crisis, a time of despair, and he heard the prayers, and he was the one that responded. Allow me to illustrate this. when Jacob was fleeing from Esau, his brother, because he had cheated him from his birthright, and Jacob was on the run. He found a place to rest that was known as Bethel, and he laid down his head on a rock to sleep, and there, as he slept, he had a dream, and in that dream he dreamt of angels ascending and descending to the earth and ascending to the throne of God. Jacob took hope that somehow God was connecting with him, and that he made the promise himself that he said that if God will protect me throughout my journey, then I will always follow and serve the God of Abraham, his grandfather. Jacob made that a sacred place. He put some rocks and an altar there to make Bethel a sacred spot, because this was where he found God's presence, made it a sanctuary. He went and found Laban, which was his mother's brother, his uncle, and there he found a place to live, and he worked for Laban for 20 years, trying to earn enough of his possessions to be able to hold his own and raise his own family. As the years went by, Laban, his uncle, started to cheat him of what was his, and kept changing the benchmark of how long he had to work for Laban in order to earn his possessions, his wealth. To the point that it got so messy that Jacob had to plead with God to figure out how he solves the problem of Laban constantly taking things that were his, because he was his uncle, and his uncle had the final say. And so it says that the angel of the Lord appeared to Jacob and told him how to sort out the goats and the sheep and what color they were going to be, to make sure that he ended up with the black sheep and Laban ended up with the white sheep. But the black colored sheep ended up being more than the white ones, because God had his hand on it. But it's interesting that when the angel of the Lord appeared to Jacob to tell him this plan, the angel of the Lord said to Jacob that I am the God that showed up to you with the vision of the stairway to heaven, with the ladder, with the angels going up and down, and I am the one that was sitting on the throne up above. So here we have a clear description that the angel of the Lord, who's also God, is also Jesus Christ, the angel of the Lord. It's interesting because many years later, Moses, after 80 years, being 80 years old and being in the wilderness, as a sheep herder for 40 years, the angel of the Lord appears to him in a burning bush. And yet this same burning bush, it says, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the bush. But the Lord said, take your sandals off your feet, because where you are standing is holy ground. We're later told in the book of Judges, chapter 2, we're told that the Lord appeared to the people of Israel as the angel of the Lord appeared to the people of Israel, and told them that he had led them through the wilderness and into the promised land. Interestingly enough, in the New Testament, Stephen, who was the first Christian martyr, before he was martyred and stoned to death, he relayed the history of Israel to his audience of Jewish Pharisees that were wanting to stone him for him professing to be a Christian. Stephen, in his relaying of the story, makes it a point to point out that same story of Moses, that the angel of the Lord appeared to Moses in the fire. And he makes reference that the angel of the Lord appeared to him, but he knew it was the Lord who was talking to him. And then we find that the Apostle Paul, some 30, 40 years after Jesus had ascended to heaven. I don't know how old Paul might have been, probably in his 60s, and he was on a boat on his way to Rome, and it got shipwrecked out at sea for more than 2 weeks, stranded out at sea, lost, not knowing where they were going to land. It was dark, it was cloudy, they hadn't eaten for 2 weeks. There was over 260 people in that boat, and they could hear it in the middle of the night. They could hear the waves crashing on the shores and on the rocks, but they couldn't see because it was so dark. Some of the people on the boat wanted to jump onto the lifeboat and escape, and the Apostle Paul pleaded with them to stay on the boat, that nobody would survive if they went onto the lifeboat, that they needed to stay on the boat. Interestingly enough, Paul's argument for why they needed to stay on the boat was that he said in Acts 27, verse 24, he said, "The angel of the Lord appeared to me last night in my dreams and told me that we would be shipwrecked, but we would, by the grace of God, we would all survive if we stayed in the boat." He told everybody to eat because they hadn't eaten for most of that time period, probably out of fear and probably out of nausea from the boats rocking through the storms. They hadn't eaten. They had plenty of supplies of grain, and he prayed and thanked the Lord and broke bread and ate because he knew that they were going to need the energy as soon as the sunrise showed up and they could see where they could swim to. And so he told everybody that I trust and I believe what the angel of the Lord had told me, and they did exactly what they asked. They stayed in the boat, and every one of them was saved. Those that could swim swam to shore. Those that couldn't swim hung on to whatever could float as the boat started to fall into bits and pieces, and then they floated to shore, and every one of them was saved. Why? Because the angel of the Lord was there. The angel of the Lord is here. The angel of the Lord is Jesus Christ. The angel of the Lord was there in Egypt. He was the one that delivered the people of Israel through the wilderness into the promised land. And the angel of the Lord, which is Jesus Christ, is going to be the same person who is going to deliver us from whatever lies ahead of us at the end of time, and will take us through to the promised land. And when will they be able to return to be able to worship me in Jerusalem? It was the angel of the Lord that pleaded with God for that. And the angel of the Lord is pleading with God as to how long it will be before we too can go into the promised land that God has prepared for us. And it is the angel of the Lord that will present himself to us during these difficult times. It is for that reason that Revelation says this calls for the patient endurance of the faithful by being obedient to God's laws, but also holding on to the testimony of Jesus. If we're going to endure, if we're going to stay hopeful, if we're going to remain positive during this distressful period, we need to ask for the angel of the Lord to reveal himself, just like he did with Stephen before he was stoned, just like he did with the Apostle Paul during a life-threatening shipwreck. The angel of the Lord is the one that is going to appear for us, and he is going to answer to our questions and our confusion. And it is only by people sharing the presence of the angel of the Lord in their lives that we will be able to endure with a hopeful, Christ-centered outlook as to how we endure this pain period. Jesus is present. He said he will be with us even until the end of the world. He is around. He is waiting for you and me to seek him out as Hagar did. Hagar was Abraham's concubine. She was Sarah's servant. And when Sarah couldn't have a baby and she was distressed trying to figure out how she was ever going to have children, she said to Abraham, Abraham, I don't know if what the Lord has in mind is going to come to happen, but I want you to take Hagar as your wife and sleep with her so that I can have a child. Hagar fell pregnant. Hagar became hopeful and proud that she was the one that was going to be able to have Abraham's heir. Sarah didn't like it, gave Hagar such a hard time that she had to flee out into the wilderness because she couldn't cope with the way Sarah was treating her. She cried out to the Lord, and the angel of the Lord appeared to Hagar and said, I have heard your cries. And even though I don't like the mess that you're in and how you got into it and what is going to come out of the offspring of your child, I heard your prayer and I am here to deliver you. Go back, respect Sarah as your master, but you will be blessed. We too will be blessed if we cry out to God in our need and ask the angel of the Lord to be present and help us out. You and I only need to cry out to Jesus because Jesus is one of us. Jesus lived and died for us. Jesus is fully aware of your and my predicament during this pandemic. Jesus is aware of the confusion it is causing. Jesus is aware that you and I are afraid of what might come if I vaccinate or I don't. But none of us know the outcome, or whether this pandemic will turn into something else more sinister. But what I do know is the angel of the Lord hears your cry and my cry. The angel of the Lord wants you and me to call out to him, because it is in the joy of knowing and experiencing Jesus during these difficult times that you and I will be able to share the testimony and the faith of Jesus Christ. And that will be our focus. That will be our excitement. That will be our assurance. That will be our outlook and purpose. The reason why Paul knew that he wasn't going to die in that shipwreck was because the angel of the Lord told him that he still had to appear before Caesar in Rome. Paul said, the angel of the Lord, whom I belong to, whom I serve, it is him who I believe will make this happen. You and I, we belong to the angel of the Lord. You and I, we need to serve the angel of the Lord by keeping his presence real during this time. And you and I need to act in faith and believe that he is encamped around those who fear him, just as David said. I pray that you will join me in every prayer, at the end of every prayer, reciting Psalms 34, verse 7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Abraham Lincoln's favorite verse was only a few verses before that, which was Psalms 34, verse 4. I cried out to the Lord, and the Lord answered my prayers. May the angel of the Lord, who sits up on the throne of heaven, but is here at the response of a crying heart that yearns for answers and calls out to him, he will be present with you and me, and we need to share it. So if you have an experience, a redemption story, please join me in these blogs. Post your stories in this website and share your testimony. And check in on other people's story to find out how true and how real the angel of the Lord is present in yours and my life during this time. May the angel of the Lord be with you and guide you and protect you and hear and answer your prayers. Hold on to that faith during this time. And it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what choices we make when we have no idea what the outcome will be. But we're assured He will guide us to the promised land, whether alive or in our sleep. Whatever comes, you and I have the assurance that Jesus gave to everybody before us. God bless.
Hello, my name is Lillian Cavallaro. I am 28 years old and I live in Port Macquarie, New South Wales, Australia. So I'm just going to follow the document I've been sent. What happened? So I have a blood disorder. It's called protein C deficiency, and that resulted in me getting a blood clot in my portal vein when I was 12 years old. So the portal vein is between your liver and your spleen, and over my life that caused back pressure into my spleen, like the blood couldn't get through, and I ended up with a big spleen, and that was left alone for most of my life. They just thought it would be fine, and it was found out it wasn't fine, and there was a bunch of aneurysms, varices, the big clot, my kidney was starting to blow out, and there was a lot in there that was would end up killing me pretty quickly. Where? It's in my portal vein, so it's about here. When did this happen? I had an operation on Friday the 13th of August, about 3 weeks ago, so I got it all fixed. Who was involved was me, my fiance, and my family and friends were really awesome to me. How? Explain details. Okay, so September last year, my fiance and I were talking about starting a family in the next few years, and I thought I should probably get some tests done because my spleen was so big. My logic was, how is a baby going to fit in there? So I went and got tests done, and they were sent to various specialists and whatnot. One of the specialists was like, wow, no, you will die, we found all these aneurysms. And then that scan was sent to another specialist in Sydney who said, even without pregnancy, this will probably kill you, so we need to do something about this really quickly. So I went to Sydney really quickly, had an angiogram done through my wrist, they go all the way down, and they realised it was a lot worse than what was originally thought. So, happened really quickly, got sent to Sydney during COVID to one of the hospitals there. Was really lucky that I could get in. My fiance dropped me off and he drove back to Port. It was really hectic. He was able to get an exemption. Probably, was it? He came on the Wednesday, I had surgery on the Friday. I was there 2 weeks by myself, getting lots of tests done, having a workup. And it was really lucky that he was able to come. I'd asked to see the social worker because I was struggling. I was very anxious about a lot of it and too much time by myself to think. And she was awesome, so he was able to come and stay for the rest of the time, which is really, really helpful. What else happened? It was a 9-hour surgery. I was in ICU for a few days. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. What were the fears? The biggest fear for me was that I would die, because it was a very real possibility. I was worried that I wouldn't have said things to people that I loved that I felt should have been said. But I also didn't want to say them because I didn't want to put it out there and manifest them. So that was probably the biggest fear, yeah. The duration of it. I was in Sydney for a month. 2 weeks workup, had the surgery, 2 weeks. They monitored me for 2 weeks afterwards because of the clotting disorder. They, when you take spleen out, your platelets come up, which can cause you to clot. So I had to stay there for a little bit longer than someone without that problem would. 6 to 8 weeks of external healing for the wound to sort of seal up, and then 6 months for the internal tissue, because when they took the spleen out, they moved a vein down to another vein with my own tissue and my own blood, which was really lucky. So that will have to take about 6 months, they said, for that to heal. The odds, 1 in 2 million. So 1 million for the blood disorder, and then another million for each of the separate complications that happened. So that's why the workup took so long, because all of the specialists said, we've seen all of these problems in different people, but we've never seen them all together, so we don't really know what quite to do when they first met me. So that's why it took so long, which was a good thing. The struggle was mental. I've got a pretty good pain tolerance. I kind of just go inside myself when I'm in pain and deal with it. But yeah, it was all a big mental struggle. I think because of COVID, I was by myself. I'm an anxious person by nature. I had to have multiple conversations every single day with a lot of different specialists, so that I'd have like 5 or 6 pretty hectic conversations about, mortality and risks and how it's going to affect my life. And then I would have to have that conversation again with my dad, with my mum, with my partner, and I would forget so much information from different conversations, and it was really overwhelming. But they ended up I would just FaceTime my family and be like, you listen, because it was really hard to process all of that information from multiple specialist perspectives. Where am I up to? What did you feel mentally? Anxious. I was very anxious beforehand. I had a will made before I left, because the doctor that did the angiogram, he really scared me. He was originally going to do the surgery, but I didn't gel with him. I wanted a second opinion. He freaked me out. So I'm glad I went with the other team. So I guess that was sort of the height of my anxiety, was getting a will done. But then as the time went on, when I was in Sydney, I began to accept it, because I didn't really have a choice. It was, you need to get this done or you will die. So yeah, you kind of just have to sign your life away and do it. Afterwards, I don't really remember what I felt. There's a good 4 or 5 days that I don't remember. I can remember snippets of ICU and snippets of afterwards, but I couldn't tell you on what days they happened or anything. Apparently I just kept saying my shoulder hurt. They didn't do anything with my shoulder. I could hear beeping. I remember a little toothpick with a green sponge in it, because I had been fasting from midnight prior to the surgery. The surgery took all day. They woke me up slowly because they assumed I'd be in a lot of pain. But then you can't have water for a few hours afterwards because of all the tubes and stuff. And I was so thirsty. Even though I had drips in, my mouth was so dry, and I vividly remembered this little green sponge was that was the only thing that mattered. And my partner he was allowed to what my lips or let me suck on it with some water on it. So that was just the best thing in the world. What else? What did I feel? Sick. Yeah, just felt sick. Where are we? Redemption. What was I rescued from? I was rescued from death. I didn't die. Without all of the people that were involved, I would have died. How did it feel? Scary. Very scary. Very grounding. Anxiety provoking. It felt a lot bigger than me. It made me feel like I'm a little sack of meat and bones on big rock floating through space. And it reminded me that your body is only as strong as its weakest part. Like a little clot in a vein just caused so many problems. Yeah, I had a lot of time to think about it all before the surgery because I was alone. So I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit afraid of dying, I think. Yeah, but it wasn't the biggest fear, actually. I think the biggest fear was that, like, I was leaving people behind. I felt scared and sad and guilty about hurting those people. I didn't want to leave anything unsaid, but I also didn't want to say those things to manifest them. So I was very torn. That's why I ended up asking to see a social worker, because I didn't know how to handle that. Yeah. Spiritual experience, yes. I'm a pretty spiritual person. This question makes me think about all the surgeons and all the doctors, because for the actual operation, like, that's just a great nap for me. I don't remember any of that. But they are watching you for 9 hours and 10 minutes. They, like, didn't leave me. They watched every single heartbeat, every pump of blood, everything. They are just amazing. Like, that's otherworldly to me. The fact that people, that's their job, they go to work and do that all day, every day. I think too, because I was by myself for so long there, and they come and see you every day, you do form quite, intense relationships with each other. I could cry to them, I could tell them my fears. They were, I instantly trusted them. They were so good to me. They restore your faith in humanity, people like that. Yeah, they're really good humans. They work from dawn until dusk, just snipping away at people, solving problems, and then stitching them back up. That's what they do for a living. It's like Frankenstein. It's crazy. But yeah, I felt very cared for and protected by those people. I know that doesn't sound spiritual, but at the time it's a really big and deep bond and trust that you have with those people. And by the end of it, I knew their cats' names. You become really close, and they would say things to me like, Lil, we want to know every single vein in your body. We're not cowboys. We're not doing this quickly. We don't want anything bad to happen to you. So you do trust them because they showed that they're worth trusting. And the weird thing is, I never saw their faces because of the masks. I only ever saw their eyes. It's just like that. So that's, I don't know if I would know them if I saw them, which is weird. Did you feel any assurances, any hope? Yeah, I did. This is a good question. The surgeons would explain the risks to me and give me percentages when I asked for them. The biggest assurance to me was pointed out by my cousin. She asked me, have you felt the need to write any letters to anybody and say, goodbye and stuff? And when I realised that hadn't occurred to me, like, I'd written a will, but I hadn't written the important things, like letters to people, I knew deep down that I knew I'd be okay, because I hadn't thought to do that. And when she suggested it, I didn't feel compelled to do it. I think the hardest thing for me was that if I did die, wow, this is hard. If I did die, I wanted my partner to move on and to love somebody else, and to be happy. And that was probably the hardest thing for me, because I didn't want to say it to him and scare him, and I didn't want to manifest my own death, but I wanted him to be happy. That was something I struggled with. And that's what the social worker helped me work through. So I was assured by not needing to say that to him, but knowing that someone had heard it just in case. It's like a way around my own anxiety, I guess. Things that assured me. I was really lucky. My family and friends are beautiful. They sent me little care packages, and they would send me like a little thing of sand from my favourite spot on the beach, shells, crystals, and just little parts of nature, because nature's such a big part of my day. I go to the beach every morning, I go for a run with my dog and stuff, and I love nature, and those things are really important to me. And I found that, I would line this little collection I ended up with along the shelf next to my bed, and they were like little talismans, and I would hold them, and I just found them really grounding because they're a part of my reality. That's just everyday little things. They made me feel calm and safe and normal, I guess. I journaled a lot. That assured me a lot. I wrote down a lot of my feelings about my mortality. At home, I would watch the sunrise every morning, and I tried to keep doing that from the hospital. I was really lucky. I had my own room and a window, so I could see out, and I couldn't see the sunrise, but I could see it sort of come up over the buildings. And normally at home, I would be watching that on the beach, and sometimes when there's lots of clouds and the sun shines through, it makes those really nice beams on the water, and I always hear in my head when I see that, because it stops me in my tracks every single time I see it. I love it. I always hear in my head, that's the eye of God. And I don't know if it's something my mum used to say to me or if I've just made it up in my head, but I would watch out the window and just imagine that scene, which is, I don't know why I did that, but it would make me feel like I'd started my day how I normally would, I guess. Or sometimes I would watch little videos on my phone that I'd filmed of that at home. Do I see my life differently now? Yes, absolutely. My life's completely different now. I see what I used to see as big things are now little things, and what were little things I now see as big things. I don't pick stupid fights with people I love anymore. I think I'm a lot more chilled out. Not much will rattle me now. It's different because I will never know that I could have died in the next few years. So I have to live with that thought now. And I guess it makes me realise that every single day that I open my eyes is a gift. And the fact that, I had such a massive operation and such a hectic thing happen to my body, but I can still, in a few weeks, I'll still be able to get up, go for a run, go for a walk. I can hear, I can use all my limbs. It's not that much different. My immunity will be a bit low, but they, give you immunisations and stuff to work around that. Not much is different, and that's insane. I think I'll look at the beauty around me a lot more and slow down a lot. It kind of just makes you reevaluate everything and what's really important. Who do I want to thank and praise? Doctors, surgeons, nurses, pathologists, cleaners, chefs, every single person in the medical world, researchers, my partner, the universe, fate, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. I'm a lucky girl. And I thank them and I praise that every single day now, because I could be dead. Why do I feel compelled to thank them? I'm still alive. I am still physically here, doing really well. There were so many odds stacked against me, and for some reason that I don't understand, and maybe I never will, I guess I defied them. I'm not dead. And that feels like a big responsibility, but it also feels really beautiful and freeing. So that's my story. Bye.